Kind of like 20, 25 here.
James, so much of the conversation in your world, media, in our world, logistics, is around the emergence of AI.
Yep.
What is your general view on AI?
Well, I think it's similar to what you guys were saying earlier today. And to take a quick step back, so Omeda, we support over 200 different media and publishing companies, one of them, FreightWaves being one of them. We send 10 billion emails a year. We store millions and hundreds of millions of records, so we see a lot of data. And AI from a media perspective, and I think for most organizations and most industries, it's going to be the low-hanging fruit. It's going to be the things that are going to allow us to go quicker, go faster, and actually give some thought process back into what we're doing. We were talking to a client recently who spends 2 weeks pulling reports, right? Just managing reports together. AI is going to make that happen in 10 minutes for her and free up some of her time and her thinking on this. So my view of AI is that we are in the first inning of this, and what it's able to do right now in the first inning is, I think, pretty incredible. And some of the stuff we're seeing, and it's only going to get more advanced. But right now, it's clearing out the operations, it's doing things a little bit more faster and more efficiently.
So, I mean, your industry is most vulnerable to crap content.
Yep.
Just the cost of content goes to zero. AI is obviously a big topic because everyone's worried about it replacing journalism. But do you think that's a reality, or you think that
No, I don't think
bifurcation of
no, I don't think
junk
it's going
content and
Yeah, I don't think it's going to replace journalism. I think it's going to create, I think you're going to see more deeper journalism, actually, because I think some of the things that where AI can replace, and you've already started to see this in some of the, it's sort of like sports scores, right? Do I really need to know all the ins and outs of a Division II soccer game where I can just take the data from that game and run it through AI and gives me sort of a very much what happened in the game? Sure. That type of thing, we're now able to produce so much more content, I think is very helpful. Now, where's the insights of that game? What really happened? Where are they in the rankings? What's the next games coming up that they're worried about? What does the coach say? Those types of things, the more in-depth journalism, I think we're going to see more of. But the basic facts patterns of journalism, I think we will see more around sort of taking that from AI.
So a lot of the conversations about the search engines losing, like they're trying to create these walled gardens where effectively you don't even go to a media site to find answers. You basically go to Google or Grok on Twitter or whatever to ask it. It seems like I've been using Grok as my preferred AI thing quite a bit. Do you think that we're going to see the end of sort of the open web?
I think it's very possible that, and I think for a lot of if there's marketers in the room, you've probably even seen the traffic to your sites drop.
Yeah.
From search engine optimization for SEM, SEO, which everyone in this room who has a software product or has a data product or is trying to create content or bring together buyers and sellers, sell a product, you're creating content to try to attract them. So, my thesis has always been is that everyone's a publisher, and Google has kind of been the store for that. And you search a term, and that traffic is then driven to that site, whether it's a media property, a vendor property, a product property, whatever it might be. What is happening, and you're seeing this across the industry now, and particularly if you go to Google and you're seeing those top sections on Google, you're not having to click off. You're not having to drive, in publishers particularly, we're seeing a lot of traffic from Google from the platforms. I'd also, from the clients we talk to, advertisers and other folks in the room here, my guess is you're seeing a drop off as well.
Yeah,
and which is going to try, if you're talking MQL to SQL type environments for product folks, that is a consideration.
So what is your message to, you've got media companies, but media companies are always thinking about their customers.
Yeah.
What are we to do to fend off this inevitable decline in traffic?
So the way, and it's not just, and I think you're going to ask this question too, but it's not just search. Email, the inbox is becoming incredibly hard to get into as well. And with Apple MPP, iOS 18, everything that we're seeing on that, for the marketers in the room, if you think you have a 50 or 60% open rate, you do not.
Why is that?
It is bullshit. So Apple is opening every email you send now through Apple MPP, And then the click rates as well that you're seeing, any opens or clicks, particularly if you're going into corporate domains or you're going into domains of even government domains, the bot clicks are clicking all those emails.
Why is their bot clicking and sending out false data?
So Apple is opening the email. And then when you go into the domain and the email domain, the security products are clicking the emails.
Why would they do that?
To keep bad actors from coming in. So we all,
So they're reading the email. There's an
they're
AI
reading,
bot essentially.
AI bot. So you're reading. Apple's opening the email. So anything on an Apple device is opening the email, which is inflating opens. And then when you're going into corporate domains, and I'm sure everyone in here has a Barracuda or a Proofpoint or something that is keeping that data from coming in, it is the security clicks bots are clicking all the bots. And so for the marketers in the room, again, when you're looking at your data and you're trying to market to your customer base, you can't necessarily trust the data. You actually have to look at it in a more sophisticated way and actually see either end results. So now you have Google, which is closing the open web and potentially. You have Apple and others that are keeping data coming from email, scrubbing that data, making it not as valid. So what else can you do, right? And really what I think is driving the connections in the industry now is events like this. I mean, you have to have a multi-pronged approach if you're in a B2B environment. If you're in a B2B marketing environment, having both a face-to-face, having a web presence, having an email presence, that is what's driving the community, and that's what's driving the buying signals for folks in the industry.
So so our audience, there's not a ton of media people in this room.
Sure. Yep.
Most of our audience are either marketers, perhaps in the room, but small company founders, but also large organizations. With your message is the days of the internet reachability is quickly declining,
yes,
or at least the percentage, your batting average is quickly declining. What is a marketer to do? I mean, ultimately, those jobs aren't going away; they're just becoming harder.
Yeah, I think. Well, one, I mean, working with companies, media companies, particularly if you're a marketer trying to find that buyer, working with media companies like FreightWaves and others where you have that direct relationship with that end market, right? That's going to be one of the big drivers. I think from a tactical perspective, there are some things that marketers can do, particularly if you're using like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact or even a HubSpot, things like those types of things. You can actually put stealth links within your emails from a tactical perspective, and that would be a URL that's white on white, so the human can't see it. And I don't recommend doing this across all of your sends because the bots will see it over time. But if you put a hidden URL white on white within your email send, if you're a marketer in the room, you can then see the reporting and see what's clicked on that. Now you know the marketers or your teams that are sending out these emails that you're actually not getting the opens and the clicks you thought you were, and you can start to see what type of bots are having on your email traffic, which is something I think we sometimes think is our most valuable channel as marketers, and we don't realize really what's happening on the industry on that.
But your business is to drive a lot of the campaigns that a lot of media companies like
yes,
we use.
Yeah.
So, but the challenge is that the job is now much harder. I mean, it used to be that everybody could become a marketer. That is more challenging. When you say that these automated bots are opening email, what is the percent that someone should expect?
So our average, so we send, again, about 10 billion emails a year. We see roughly across all of our sends about a 40% open rate.
That is a published, unofficial open rate?
That is a published open rate when we negate, and we also negate bot traffic from our results. So that open rate has leveled out. It includes some of the Apple MPP, but it's leveled out. It really spiked early about 3 years ago, and now it's leveled down. And you see an average click rate of about 1.8% on that across all the emails we send.
So wait, the published number is 40%,
yeah,
and the actual number is 1.8%.
In terms of a click-through.
So we're getting 95% false results.
A lot of it it's not necessarily false results, but I think the idea that someone's opening your email and then clicking through, and that you're going to see this massive traffic. Some people say they have a 60% open rate with a 4 or 5% click-through rate. It's just not real. It's not real data. It's vanity metrics that marketers like to point to, media companies like to point to as well, but it's just not driving results.
So what is the new world in terms of marketers? If you were starting a freight tech company or
Yeah.
working in marketing of a freight tech company and you wanted to reach audiences, you've talked about in-person events.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty obvious answer, but
Yeah, it's so first of all, you have to have everyone is a publisher, right? And I think I think you have to have a little bit of that mindset of the content that you're putting out as a vendor or as a marketer. How is it resonating with the audience you have? And at the end of the day, yeah, we're a software company as well, so it is about results and driving a deal and getting a deal closed. But you have to remember that the buyer and the buying committees, particularly if you're an enterprise type product where you're selling to multiple people, it is a multi-touch attribution. And so not only do you have the web content, you have the email content, you have an in-person event. Yes, there's programmatic for if anyone does any programmatic advertising on this, but it's truly a surround sound messaging now. And we all tend to think that our content is the best content, and that why aren't they reading our stuff? And the attention game is the problem. The attention game and being top of mind. And I think a lot of companies have over-indexed on an MQL SQL strategy, and not really thought about branding. At the end, there is a branding strategy that needs to come into play in brand awareness around the person, and then a deep dive into that account or into that individual. It is quality content, and to think you're just going to throw up your best product features or your best product specs, it's not going to drive the results you think it is.
so it used to be pretty easy to write a blog post.
Yep.
And then just push it out through your email list and you would get some response.
How many emails do we all get, right? I mean, thousands.
So, but now you're saying that brand matters because there's been this sort of movement away from brand over the last decade. Exactly what you talked about is quantifying the marketing results.
Yeah.
As I can do X to equal Y, I can spend X and it would equal Y. What you're saying is that those days are clearly over with, or at least the game has changed.
The paid media is still going to be there. So if you want to pay Facebook or pay Google, you can definitely do that. The organic piece of this is going to be one of the issues, right? And that is one thing a lot of companies they would try to game the system with SEO, keyword blocking. You put up blog posts and look, our search traffic is going to go up. Google just isn't going to play that game as much anymore. And then on the inbox, on the email side, you're seeing false data with opens and clicks. And so it's becoming harder and harder to really quantify sort of that attribution. That being said, I think we've over-indexed on this spend $1 here, you call it kind of negative CAC, and when you talk about spend $1 here and you get here, I think one of the, if you think about it from a pure B2B play, having content like you do with FreightWaves and then having that sonar product as well, those to me is what you're starting to see more of. And taking that example out into the marketplace for companies in the room here, having a strong sort of content presence can actually drive better results for your core product on there.
A lot of times I read the SEO folks and you look at marketers that hire SEO people that know nothing about the industry. And a lot of times it looks like word salad.
Yeah.
They've taken a bunch of words, they put it together in a blog post, and you're reading and you're like, I'm not even sure what these words mean. They certainly don't belong together.
Right.
One of the things that's been talked about, at least Google is trying to eliminate a lot of that gaming of the algo, but it's also hurting legitimate marketing content or even editorial content. Where does this end up?
Well, listen, I think many people know there's a big DOJ fight right now with Google. We have seen this, how this all shakes out, and does the search business and the advertising business get separated? Which, we've seen this with railroads. We saw this with the bells. We've seen this. This is kind of the new power center. And I think, frankly, again, to kind of divert here, as much as there's been talk about ChatGPT and OpenAI hurting Google's business, I wouldn't be surprised if there's people at Google actually cheering it on, because it shows that it's not a monopoly. That shows that there's actually another way for people to drive and find information, which potentially actually reinforces their position to the DOJ. But what we're seeing in the dominance that Google has, not just in the media industry, but also in the marketing and product industry, I think ultimately whether there's another competitor, which we're starting to see, and or there's an antitrust operation here where the search business and the ad business are separated.
I mean, Microsoft got broken up,
Yep.
or at least, it was Netscape that actually
Netscape.
prosecuted that lawsuit or originated that lawsuit. By the time that law, the Department of Justice ruled, a lot of Microsoft's advantages have been displaced by the market. This could very well, I mean, these lawsuits take for
Yeah, I mean, I think
long time.
again, I've always seen you kind of reference it. I've always seen Google as a utility, literally a utility, right? That is, and utility companies are regulated. Is that what it becomes from that standpoint? I think too, what you're also starting to see, and from marketers in the room, again, intent data, behavioral data, that intent to purchase, which can be both a web, it can be a site visit, it can be an email click, it can be someone coming up to the booth here. Showing that intent data is actually going to be sort of more of a driver. Behaviors are the best predictor of a future event, right? That is really going to be the driver. So even though they may not download the white paper, even though they may not open every email you send, if you start to have some signals, kind of like what you have with Sonar, showing the intent of the behavior of your potential customer, that to me is going to allow people to be a little bit more effective.
It's also like in the news business, the media business, I would argue that having a place that, like, we're not doing a good job of this today. I mean, frankly, is we're not capturing who's hitting the website because it's open, it's free, all this stuff. We at some point have to lean into the fact that we need that first-party data. But at least when someone's coming to an article, it's not being pushed upon. We do send out a lot of email traffic, but we also, there's a lot of traffic that comes to the site because they're interested in the content. It's different than sort of pushing content out to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, media companies are a destination and product companies are more of a distributor, right? There's very few times where, you see a lot of audience or customers coming to the website to browse. They're going to go to a media property, and that's where the balance between the media and the advertiser and the product teams need to come together. But the successful product companies are creating experiences for their customers as well, right? They're creating great content. They're doing events like this. They are looking at not just a single channel of email or web, but looking at the journey of the customer through their processes. And it's really, for those of you, a few years ago, account-based marketing. There's a lot of client, technologies out there that can help with that. But that type of approach is what we're seeing more and more of.
So let's walk through a scenario. Let's say that we started a freight tech company, an AI engine or an AI bot.
Yep.
What would be the marketing strategy? Like, what should that company, perhaps someone in our audience, they want to reach? They're an unknown commodity in our industry. What would you say if you ran marketing for them? What would you do?
Yeah, I think first, very good question. I like this a lot. So one, and it's frankly relevant to my business today a little bit because we're looking at some new markets that we don't have a brand name in at all. But one, I think you have to find where is the community today, right? The community, particularly in a vertical SaaS or vertical product environment, where is that community gathering? Is it gathering at an event like this? Is there an association they're going to? So doing a little bit of a market research on like where do the community gets together. Separate to that, I think one thing we forget about with these vertical communities is there are power players, there are personalities, there are folks within these communities that have been together there for many, many years. How can you start to bring them into the fold of what your product is? Is there some peer recommendations? Is there some ability to have someone to say, hey, I've tried this product? I've always been a big fan of having that product frankly have like a show pony with it, so you have someone who's out there using it that has some
a referenceable
can that. And then one, I think you need to have a very strong value message on the content you're creating around your product, right? And we sometimes think about the email, social, and web as these distinct channels. You really need to have the same branding and the same message across all three, and then carry that through to a face-to-face. And I think of it as kind of that reverse funnel of I have a customer at the top, an unknown person at my website. How am I then tracking them through that funnel to what is my ultimate goal, which might be a visit to the booth here or a download of or a demo of the product from here. Having that sort of that funnel tracking through that is incredibly important. I would take a beat to make sure you're setting up your systems correctly to do that. We sometimes have we're talking about this about stage, we sometimes have folks that have a little bit of pretty light syndrome, but when we take a step back, we can actually build a flow that's actually can be tracked very
All right, let me give you one last question before we go. If you're a big established company and you're in a market that is as fragmented as freight is, what would you message to the marketer that they should be doing? You mentioned brand marketing. Is there something else that they should be considering?
I think people, if you're a big established brand, I think where I've seen a lot of success in other industries is when the brand makes the individual of their client the hero. A lot of folks want to be recognized for the work they do in their industry, and the big brands have a good job of sort of recognizing those individuals rather than recognizing the company. You were talking about this at the beginning this morning about that with your business wars. The people are what make up these organizations, and the big brands who are established. If JB Hunt is calling out a specific individual at a client of theirs or things like that, that goes a long way because you're connecting the individual to that brand. And in B2B marketing, we tend to forget that there's a human on the other side of that sometimes, and this is where consumer marketing does a much better job.
Yeah.
B2B tends to forget that.